I gotta tell you, man, it is great to see you. It's great to hear your voice. We go back a long ways, man, when it comes to Sloan. First off, how are you doing? How's the band doing? And man, pandemic kicking everybody's ass. What's it been doing for you guys too, man?
Well, I actually had a particularly crappy pandemic in that I developed in January, I developed Bell's palsy. Like I had like the left side of my face totally went dead. I had total melted candle face and it's still you can still see it a little bit in my left eye, but I've come out of it pretty well. Yeah, I actually am doing great. Sorry, so that's just like a weird sidebar, but like I've
No.
come out of that. I've come out of that great. Um, the band I don't see that often. You know, I text them in varying degrees. I talk to Jay kind of like a couple times a week. I talk to Patrick every week or so, and I don't talk to Andrew that much. But and I went over. Andrew just did. We've all done little solo shows from our homes. Andrew did one. He was the holdout, but he went. So we all did them. So like I feel like we're kind of that's kind of the way we have made the band so that we can all be the front man kind of thing. So we've each taken turns doing it. I didn't think Andrew was going to do it, but he did, and it was great. And anyway, so we've been flexing these muscles that we didn't use before. I've never really played solo acoustic before, but I did 5 shows like that. So that was kind of a fun thing to get whatever to pass the time. I made a little bit extra money doing it too, so it was fun. It was great.
Well, I'm glad to hear the music is still alive. I'm even more happier that you're doing okay physically too. I mean, that wow, man. I did not see that coming around this corner. So
Oh,
I'm
okay,
so
yeah.
glad.
Sorry to.
No, no,
No,
no. I'm just glad that you're okay, because like I said, man, we've known each other for such a long time and I love talking to you guys. I love the music that you guys have put out over the years. I've always had a blast talking to you guys. And even more importantly, too, what we're talking about today, because the big announcement, Saints and Sinners tour, certain band is going to be part of all this. Who is that band now?
well, right. So this would be Sloan. This is my band, and we're going to be on this tour. And should I say we were kind of added to the tour? Like we were kind of the fourth band to the party, and they already did a bunch of legwork and sold a bunch of tickets. So we're happy to be here. And so you talk about knowing each other a long time. These are also guys from our vintage. Like the first Sloan record came out in 1992, but the first Tea Party record came out in 91. I think the first Headstones came out in 93, first Moist 94. So it's like kind of that sort of early 90s vintage with all these guys. And so I think it'll be fun. I think, it sold lots of tickets and I can't wait to play in front of a lot of people.
Cannot wait to see you guys, man. It's kind of funny too because I was talking with Rain Maida of Our Lady Peace just about a month ago on a project that he was doing. He was talking about that they're releasing a new album, and one of the things that we did talk about was since this pandemic. I mean, I personally have been listening to a lot of like 70s, 80s, 90s music, and it's almost like that's my reminiscing for good times for me, and you guys are a big part of that, music landscape. What do you think it is for yourself too, man, when you think about when you talk about Moist or Tea Party, Headstones? What was it like, man, for you guys back then? I wouldn't say competition, but man, it was always like, one was trying to top, it felt like one was topping the other, and it was aggressive, but it was fun, and it was fun for us to be part of all this.
Yeah, like I read some of the so we're late to the game with the advertising and that kind of stuff, and I've read things that the other guys have said about the other bands, and it's all very friendly, and it of course as it should be, but like there's part of me that wants it to be more like a cage match, like who is going to win the tour, but I'm kind of kidding. But we spent a lot of time in the 90s living in Halifax. We moved to Toronto kind of by the late 90s, but we were just kind of like living in Halifax, not really knowing anybody. And when you're young and arrogant and you're like in a gang, it's like we're better than all those other bands. But I've met so many people over the years. I met all these guys over the years. I actually I in when we lived in Halifax in 1993, we came to Toronto, and we needed a place to practice. And we had a friend, Cam Carpenter, who you probably know, who
Absolutely.
set us up with the headstones. We didn't know who they were, but they had a practice space, and we used their practice space. And Hugh Dillon was right up in my face after because we were like being hyped at the time, and he's right up in my face. It's like this means that we're going to play shows together. I'm like, ha ha ha. And he's just like completely stone faced, like, like, it's so intimidating. It scared the hell out of me. But so I think he's mellowed out, but he could still capable of scaring you. You know, as
Well,
for like who are the saints and who are the sinners on this tour, I don't know. I almost feel like we're kind of the goofiest of the bands, although I don't mean to impose that on Andrew, who's not in our band, who's not that goofy. But all of those bands, we thought of them as all kind of being kind of serious, and we were kind of goofier, or I was anyway. But I think everybody, when you meet everybody after, it's like everybody means well. They're just working hard and they're just goofy too. Like it's hard to think of Jeff Martin, who's just like this, I led you into damnation and all this kind of stuff. It's like he's just a goofball too. Everybody's just a nice person.
I know Jeff very well, and I know exactly what you're talking about too. He's got this subtle humor where he can tell a joke, but he'll tell it like this,
Well,
and
I
then you
went.
got to sort of listen to hear the joke.
Well, I went to see Rush in the '90s, and they were all like leather pants, or Alex Lifeson leather pants, and then I went backstage. I got to meet them, but he's just like big dad shorts. I'm just like, oh, of course, and of course, if you know Alex, like I don't know him that well, but like I've met him, and the coolest guy.
Now, you know what? And the thing I always thought about you guys, it's kind of funny when you say goofy. I never thought about goofy. I actually thought the word groovy because you guys had that 90, it was a 90s, it was 90s music, but you always had that 70s kind of groove, kind of rock thing. Like, where did that sound actually start to come together? I think you know what I mean when I say that.
Well, we really we think of ourselves as having our first record was really kind of the time and kind of like grunge and shoegaze British, and then by our second record in 1994, we were really like we kind of want to make timeless music. We want to go back to the 60s and 70s and make music like that. We kind of thought we were in kind of an alternative music ghetto that we thought was going to just like a house of cards that was going to come crashing down at some point. It's like, doesn't everybody know that like every crappy band is alternative now? Let's get out of here. So we just wanted to be kind of like a more straight ahead rock band, although we were always kind of underfunded. Like I think all these bands, I'm happy to hang with them, and I think that we've had a certain amount of cultural relevance over the years. I don't know how much now, but we don't. All those bands sold. All those bands have sold platinum records. Like we never had a platinum record. We had a couple gold records, but and I don't mean to downplay our. I think that our band is one of the greats and all that kind of stuff. I can be as arrogant about it as the next guy, but all of those bands were kind of bigger. Like we kind of our second record was actually a big commercial flop. Like we wanted to make our reference points were less Nirvana and more like Fleetwood Mac and it was actually a huge commercial flop. But in doing so, we galvanized a smaller group of fans who kind of became fanatic, and so we became kind of a cult act. And though not as big, not really, we were able to be on. We were on Much Music a lot. We were on the Big Shiny Tunes. Like all of these groups, I think were on Big Shiny Tunes,
Yep.
and that was the kind of thing that like made us seem like getting listed alongside the Chili Peppers and the Foo Fighters. So if you're a kid in Canada, it's like, oh yeah, those bands, Sloan, Foo Fighters. It's like, well, actually, there's actually a huge difference. But anyways, things like Big Shiny Tunes really gave us a leg up and made us seem like we were kind of bigger than we were. But I don't know what your point is in the end. Yes, we loved 70s records. We were kind of like an indie rock band. And when we kind of started flirting with like 70s motifs and AC/DC and Kiss and these things that were also our loves from being kids, there were a lot of people who turned off of us, like a lot of indie rock kids who were like, you guys have jumped the shark or whatever. Like, are you being ironic? I don't get it. Like, it's 70s rock. It's like, yeah, we love it too. Anyway.
Yeah, and I loved it, man. And it's funny. I should have written it down, but I had read somewhere that I think it was a magazine that had done a poll, and they actually, and I think it was the album from 1994. I could be wrong. That said that you guys basically recorded the best album, Canadian album of all time.
Yeah, believe me, I have this memorized.
Okay.
Now there was a magazine called Chart Magazine.
Yes.
It was called National Chart, and then it was called Chart Magazine, and then it was like a website like Chart Attack. Anyway, we did very well in those polls. They would put us at the top. which we loved, of course, but we wanted to downplay like the, really our record is better than Joni Mitchell Blue, which is 50 years old, and Neil Young Harvest. Like it seemed hyperbolic, but whatever. It was kind of, it's funny whenever you make a list of like the greatest records of all time, it's always reflective of that exact time. So they did the first of those polls that of which you speak in 1996, and of course they were talking about our 1994 record, which was kind of new, but it was a little bit old and had been a commercial failure. So I think there was a big story attached to it that we had turned our back on. You know, we we're going to forego commercial success and do what we want and play by our own rules and these kinds of things, which is kind of true. But um, anyway, so yes, we had done well in those things, but as you know, like when we were making records in the 90s, there are so many records that have been made in Canada or by Canadians now since the 2000s. Everybody from Arcade Fire, Feist, Broken Social Scene, and then like Nickelback, and then Drake, and then like Justin Bieber. Like there's like I don't know if our record gets mentioned anymore. It used to be number one, but if you made a list of the top 100 records in Canada now, like there's so many giant records now that can't be ignored. I still think we're great. Don't get me wrong.
And I agree with you too. But do you think it has anything to do with the fact that when you guys were doing what you were doing, which was so great, it was still at a time when Napster was coming into play, when record companies were being bought out by other bigger record companies. Like you guys were through a stage where not just the music landscape changing, but the physical music landscape changing.
Oh, for sure. Like when we started, we made our first record and we started recording it in 91. And so we had a record come out on Geffen in 1992, or kind of 93 in the States, but 92 in Canada. And yeah, it was definitely a different time. Like people had big advances and all that kind of like record, it was CDs, of course, at the time, but people were selling millions of records. And then into the late, we were able to do sort of four records where we had gold records. And then by our fifth record, it was really Napster time. And also on Much Music, where we had a lot of love, it kind of became very Britney Spears or Marilyn Manson kind of thing. Like you were either like sugary sweet or like a troll living under the bridge kind of thing. Like it was like nothing in between. It was either sweet or sour. And so yeah, so we really felt it in about 1999. I would say that our record sales went down and all that kind of stuff. We held, we still had some singles into the early 2000s, and we still get a little bit of love on rock radio even today. Um, I think we have goodwill with the press and that kind of thing, and at radio. But we don't have a lot of money behind us. We're just kind of like a small business, but we've really done things our way, and we wouldn't have done it any differently. We're very happy and proud of what we've done and all that kind of stuff.
I was looking up some information and I saw that that you guys had released, and I want to make sure I've got this right here. It is the side B vinyl, 1998 to 2001. That's cool, man. The fact that you
Oh
guys
yeah.
vinyl, very cool.
So we did vinyl all the way through the 90s. We made sure we made vinyl from our first record all the way. There's a vinyl of everything. Now some of them are kind of flimsy and crappy in the mid 90s because it was just hard to get records made. But we grew up on records and really wanted to just collect ourselves. Like I have one of each one. But now we've been doing we keep doing new records. Like in the fall, just this past fall, we were recording and it kind of got sidelined by the pandemic. And I was just on the phone this morning about how we're going to pick this up. So we're still doing it, but we've also been doing reissue records where we do a box set of our second record and we have make a 3 vinyl box set, and we that buys us a whole tour. Then we tour that record because even though we make records in the future or in the present, when we get paid to play somewhere, it's usually based on the music that we already have written in the 90s. We are aware of that. But we want to be an act that keeps going. We don't want to be just a heritage act. We're happy to be making new records sort of defiantly, and so we'll put out a new record and then we'll come out for a tour and we'll play 10 new songs. But let me just say on the Saints and Sinners tour, I think it'll be a greatest hits greatest hits package.
I was gonna say, you got to play the hits, or else they're gonna burn the house down.
Well, we always do a bit. Are you an artist? Are you an entertainer? I would like to think we can do both. And when we do our own tours, we act like a cult act that we have new records and we want to represent that. But yes, on the Saints and Sinners tour, I think since we're going to be competing with these other bands, I think we're going to be competing to have the most hits in a set. So may the best man win.
If you could say, if there was one Sloan song that you would say has to be played, if it's not played, they're gonna burn the house down, what song would it
Right.
be?
Well, I would say the song that most people know us for, and if you look at Spotify or all those things that have made us the most money over time, would be a song called Money City Maniacs. And it gets played still at Raptors games and stuff. And I bet, all these American basketball players are listening to this song and they're like, the hell is this? You know, but it still does get played at Raptors games. And when the Raptors were in the finals like 2 years ago or whatever, I was like, can we just get somebody on the phone? Let's go down there and play it live. Like somebody that would be a good opportunity for us. But everybody sat on their hands and it didn't happen.
But what is happening is we got the tour as we speak. I do believe it begins in November. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's pretty much all of November. I think it's something like 16 shows or something.
Yes.
So it should be, it's good. It pays well. It's going to help us deal with having lost 2 summers worth of revenue. So I think it's going to come in the nick of time for us. And so hopefully it all goes without a hitch.
And any thought too, because you were talking about, you were just on the phone. When do you think we will get a chance to see new Sloan music?
Well, I've been sort of saying we've been sort of like taffy pulling our career by doing a new record and then with like a reissue of an old record and then a new record. So the last thing we did was a reissue of our 1998 record, Navy Blues. We actually, we had to stop in the middle of that tour that bought us that tour, but there are a lot of shows that we have to make up. So we'll do that, but we won't do that until after the Saints and Sinners thing is all done. But so I hope to be we haven't finished recording our latest record, which would be our 13th record. But I'd like to be finished recording by the end of September, which means that we could have a new record either by the spring of 2022 or maybe the fall of 2022. I don't know. The thing
Fantastic.
is, like, I know that you're wrapping it up, but our band played its first show 30 years ago in February. So this is our 30th anniversary, but we don't really get to capitalize on it because of the pandemic. So, but next year is the 30th anniversary of our first record. So maybe we'll try and milk that.
Well, what I'm going to try to do, and hopefully the light isn't going to reflect too much, if I could just maybe do it that way. That's one of the earliest pictures that we took together back in the day, man.
I love it. It is pretty blown out, but I'm fine. I can see who's who. That's you, me, and Jay.
Well, I'm gonna post it up when I put everything together, but I just wanted to let you know, man, I still got the pictures from back in the day. I was going through a bunch of them and I said, I got to make sure I find it, and I found it. So that's what I mean by I loved being part of the journey with you guys and doing all those interviews, red carpets, backstage, whatever else, coming to the radio station. And now as we talk about the new generation being able to do this on Zoom and everything else too, man. And I'm looking forward to the next whatever time that we end up doing these interviews on because it's a story that continues, man. I'm so happy to be part of your journey on this.
I'm glad you're hanging in there too. A lot of people have gone the wayside and we're still here. You and I are still doing it. So I'm happy to see your face too.
Brother, thank you so much for the interview. Thank you so much for the music over the years. Congratulations being on this tour and looking forward to new music from Sloan.
Right on. Thank you very much.